Well, hello everybody. Welcome to my home office. I want to begin this video by extending my thoughts and prayers with those of you who are symptomatic, those of you who've tested positive, or those of you who have loved ones or friends or even colleagues that are physically impacted by this coronavirus. And I'm so sorry for what you're going through, and all of us as coworkers as well. So I just want to acknowledge that up front, that this is a really important time for the city of Fort Collins, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing. I'm also want to just express my concern for folks who are worried about your jobs. I know that oftentimes when I do my nightly emails, I do receive feedback that people are just thankful for their jobs, and they're also worried about that. So I want to acknowledge that. The other thing I want to acknowledge is this is a very tough time, and I think it's going to remain tough for the coming weeks. More will contract the virus. More jobs will go away for either family members or neighbors or friends, loved ones. I want to tell you, coming into this coronavirus over a month ago, I will characterize the city as very strong, in a very strong position. We're being hit hard, but I believe we're going to come out just as strong, or not, if not stronger. My intent during these difficult times is to try and minimize your fear as colleagues at the City of Fort Collins. Fears about your work, fears about your own safety and security. And I will tell you, myself and the executive team and the mayor and council are very intentional about that as well. My coronavirus experience started on an airplane coming back from Washington, D.C. with the mayor and a few council members and some colleagues. And that ride over a month ago, because of a complexity at home with one of my family members who's in a vulnerable position, I needed to stay at a hotel for a week. And then I came home, and I've been home for 3 or 4 weeks now. And I'm well aware of some of even those challenges about being, staying in place. And I want to acknowledge that. I've also had change for sure during that time. Some of it has been positive. Depending on your perspective, I'll tell you, I am working more hours than I've ever worked in my entire career. I think that's obviously because of the demands that the coronavirus and the needs for the city organization, but I want to acknowledge you and my colleagues who that statement is the same, that so many people are working so long and so hard to try and solve some of the problems that we're facing. And I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you. I know now that I'm home and not at the office, I'm eating better. I'm walking 1 to 3 times per day. I'm seeing a lot of personal efficiencies and professional efficiencies in how I do my work. And I hope that when we come out of this, that I'm better at my work because of this experience. And I know many of you feel the same way. I don't want to minimize the other struggles and the pain that people are going through, but I just want to acknowledge I'm learning a lot about my own practices, and I'm in some cases having more communication and more frequent communication than before this and being in the office. So as I've thought about my primary role, and maybe I'm speaking to all of the leaders within the city of Fort Collins, whether you're a crew chief, a department head, a service area director, or even maybe leading a team of 1, I've been thinking and trying to clarify what's my primary role. And I want to say, number 1, I think it's leading with realism, being really honest about what's important right now, and understanding through empathy what are people's real fears and how can I help, how can the executive team and other leaders in this organization help. So be realistic, don't overpromise, but be empathetic and try and really understand and be present for people. And then also provide some sense of hope as we think about moving forward, not as a naive Pollyannish optimist, but as a realistic leader who sees perhaps a different perspective than many that you're leading can see. Second of all, I think a primary role for me is to understand what your needs are and to get you the resources that you need to do your job. So with that, I'm speaking to our financial projections and the various financial scenarios. We need to do that well. Um, Recognize when our financial services group and the executive team share financial information, know that right now we're doing the best we can to be as accurate as possible, but it is such a rapidly changing environment. It's hard to do that right now, but I know that that's a primary job that myself and the executive team have. I also think it's really important to have alignment between our current expenses and the revenue that's coming into the city. I will tell you, I'm very proud to date that we have avoided furloughs and layoffs through April. So what we've done is we've made a promise that if you're an hourly worker, you're gonna, with the city, a colleague of ours, you're gonna be paid through the end of April, and we're working on beyond that point. I'm very proud of that because I'm watching various employers throughout the city and throughout the state and throughout the United States where that appears to be sort of the first solution, and that's not the case here with your organization, the City of Fort Collins. I think we're going to be looking at very extensively looking at all options we have to reduce our spending and to cut our costs, while at the same time really trying to understand what revenue sources are coming in to help us get through this process. Okay, so the third primary role would be to communicate with the mayor and city council regarding decisions that need to be made. In an emergency environment, which our city charter allows or creates an environment where the city manager establishes an emergency declaration, that is true, and I do that with great caution. Only has happened a couple of times in the almost 16 years of being city manager, but to be very careful to make sure that our city council, our board of directors, is actively participating in those conversations. So that's a very important role that I play. Another one is to be available and over communicate. I think that the feedback that I've gotten, and I really appreciate it, the daily email communications that go out, by the way, those come from me, but it takes a team of folks to produce and provide those, and I want to thank those folks who've helped me do it. But I also want to thank you for the feedback. It's been great. You've been giving great feedback and great suggestions about what we can include in future communications, and we'll do exactly that. And then another role is to try and provide answers and clarity to this really cloudy time right now. And so again, I take those roles very seriously. You can count on me for those. If I don't deliver on that, you can hold me accountable, and please share feedback. So I'm thinking about this coming month, the month of April, where we have a stay in place order. My wife and I and our family have been deeply honoring of that. It's not been easy, but it is important. If we want people to stay healthy or not get sick, these stay in place orders, these physical distancing requirements are really, really important. So in the next month, I want to get crystal clear about our budget and our finances. I want to stay very connected with you all and the leadership within the city. I also want to get better connections with my peers, counterparts around the country, really understand who's doing what in the area of best practices. I also want to take the time to reflect on my own leadership, to reflect on the amazing privilege to be in this job, and to just learn while we're going through this very difficult time. I'll also commit to providing daily emails through this stay in place process. I'm going to commit to doing one video blog at least a week as we're in stay in place order. And I want to stay in very close contact with the mayor and city council. They've been playing a very important role as we've navigated through this. So let me wrap up with just a couple of comments. We have a very unique situation on our hands right now. We can focus on some really negative things going on, and I understand that in our personal lives, but let's not squander the opportunity to learn as we've been going through this. I certainly have. I've reflected on a little bit about that just earlier, but be reflective as you're being reactive as well. Let me also ask if you would please take time to write me or to express concerns or things that are going great to your service area directors. That would mean a lot. And then most importantly, let me finish by saying, please take care of yourselves, take care of your colleagues first and foremost. Please do that for us. We want to come out of this. We want to come out of this emergency, as I said, this incident, being a lot stronger as an organization. Thank you, everybody, for what you're doing.